Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Ecoffee with Experts. I am your host, Matt Fraser. And on today's show, I have a very, very special guest with me, Mark Wright. Mark is an award-winning, influential entrepreneur and self-taught digital marketing specialist renowned for his success in winning BBC's The Apprentice in 2014. He went on to found and develop one of UK's fastest-growing digital marketing agencies, Climb Online, in partnership with Lord Sugar. To date, the most successful business to have been founded by an Apprentice winner. Climb Online is renowned for its disruptive approach to digital marketing, working with household brands such as TikTok, HP, Emirates, and Made to scale growth and generate profit. When not managing the 7 companies that he owns, Mark enjoys getting some exercise from riding his bike, reading books about business and personal development, cooking, and watching Formula One racing on TV, as well as movies and documentaries about successful business people and spending time with his friends and family. Today, we're going to be talking about from apprentice to business owner, how one TV show winner made his dreams a reality with none other than Mark Climb. Mark, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Wow, Matt, what an introduction. We should just stop now and just let that introduction do it, because I don't know if I can follow that up, but thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no, absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you here. Hey, how would you describe yourself in high school? What kind of student were you? What kind of person were you?
High school was not my environment, and I'm not trying to say the Richard Branson, Bill Gates story of I struggled at school and now look where I am. School wasn't, I couldn't learn from someone stood in front of me speaking at me.
Yeah.
So I really struggled in school. I didn't know I was dyslexic till I was after school.
Okay.
And my question was always, as the teacher was standing up there speaking, is, how is this going to work for me later in life? How does this apply to life? I'm a very practical person. So when I'm sat in school listening to, Pythagoras' theorem, my question was always, how can I make money from this? So it wasn't until after school where the dots started connecting.
Wow. What did your parents do for a living?
So my dad owns a car dealership in Armidale in Australia, and my mum was a hairdresser. So they own small businesses. And, we're speaking a bit before the show. My parents owned a Mazda dealership in Australia. Not to rake up those coals, but my dad owns a used cars garage and a servicing garage, and my mum was a hairdresser. So I grew up around small business, questions at the table like, how are we going to pay the rent, the wages are due, how do we get more sales? These were all questions I was a kid hearing at the table when I was a young boy.
So what were some of the most valuable lessons that they taught you from their entrepreneurial expeditions and their work that they did?
Well, I think children learn so much, not from what they hear from their parents say, but what they see their parents do. Yeah. And my parents, both, my mum and dad, had incredible work ethic. They worked 7 days, 12 to 15 hours a day. I mean, I didn't see my dad growing up a lot, not because he wasn't there. It was because he was always working. And the things I learned from him was how to handle pressure. He can handle so much stress, so much pressure, incredible work ethic, and risk-taking. Both my parents, there's stories of founding their own businesses about taking out bank loans, going into their overdraft, selling their belongings to buy their first businesses. So what was instilled in me is, if you want to start a business, if you want to be successful, you have to put it all on the line at some point. You have to be able to handle pressure, and you've got to be able to work hard. And I think they're all things that I've embodied in my business journey.
That's awesome. Hey, what motivated you to move from Australia to England? That's very interesting.
Well, I'll make a very long story incredibly short.
Okay.
Failed at school, did terribly, but I wanted to own my own business. Okay.
All right.
So I'm like, I want to be my own businessman, but I have no qualifications, no school degree, nothing like this. Couldn't get into university because I didn't get the grades at school. So I went online and I looked what was the shortest qualification I could do to open my own business. And lo and behold, you could do a personal training course in 6 weeks online. So I went online, did a personal training course, and I became a personal trainer, opened my own personal training studio in Brisbane in Australia. So I started training one of the richest men in Australia just by pure luck, by serendipity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I started training this really rich man. And I said to him, how do I get rich? And he said, the people that are super successful in business are in sales or marketing. So he's like, you need to get into one of those two areas if you want to be successful and rich. Yeah. And I was like, right. So I went to work at the college where I got my personal training certificate. Super cool platform where you could upload any curriculum. And because Australia is such a vast country, people used to drive back in the day 6-7 hours to go to school in Australia. When the internet came out and you could study online, it was revolutionary in the country. So I started working at the personal training college, but they weren't getting any sales. The first month I worked there, they got $2,000 in sales. And I said to the owner, this is an amazing course, but we need more people to sign up. And I said, what are you doing for marketing? And he said, well, we're in the Yellow Pages. And I don't know if Canada, there was this thing in Australia and England called the Yellow Pages. I don't know if they had it.
In the US. Yeah.
And
it's like this thin now.
Yeah. Now it's like 4 Yellow Pages. But back in the day, it was a big book. And basically I said, listen, you've got to get on Google. Everyone looks online, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And he said, I don't know anything about that. And I said, well, I'll teach myself how to do it. Can I do it for the college? Anyway, I got the website ranking #1 on Google for the word personal training course.
Oh, wow.
And in 2 months, we went from $2,000 in sales to $240,000 just from getting that one keyword #1.
Wow.
And I learned a really important lesson. Ask for equity in someone's business before you make it successful, not afterwards.
Absolutely. I know.
So, got the website #1. And that's where I sort of was like, wow, I'm really good at this, like digital marketing stuff. That's when I decided I knew what I was going to do for my career. But just before that, I was like, right, I'm going to go backpacking and do the customary Australian thing where you go backpacking. Yeah, so I did the walkabout and I just ended up in London where ran out of money after 2 years of backpacking, living in London, working. I was living in a hostel, like a backpacking hostel. And I went online, Googled digital marketing agencies, and I literally walked to digital marketing agencies and handed in my CV. Because I kind of knew I'd discovered how to get people #1 on Google. This is going back a long time, by the way. So I just handed in my CV and I got a job selling Google AdWords back when Google AdWords was like fire. I used to show people and they'd be like, wow. That's how I ended up here, just at the end of my walkabout.
Wow. That's amazing. So you've always kind of had an entrepreneurial desires because of your upbringing, obviously. And it's pretty interesting that, even though you didn't do good in school, and by the way, I didn't do good in school either. School was not, I had ADD and I didn't even know it. Now I wasn't diagnosed until a few months ago. And looking back, I can see in grade 5 or in grade 4, when I was losing my keys all the time, why that was house keys and why that was happening. But it's interesting, like for people like us, for instance, Patrick Bet-David, I don't know if you're familiar with Patrick Bet-David, but his school teacher told him that he was so dumb that he shouldn't even bother and he should join the army and become a cop or a firefighter because he'd never be smart enough to make anything of himself. And now the guy's worth like $700 million, if not more. So it's just, we can't let people define who we are in regards to what we are able to do, especially at that young of an age. So I just tip my hat to you for that. So you're in England, you're working for these digital marketing agencies, but can you share your experience of how you got onto The Apprentice in 2014?
Well, like most entrepreneurs, I started working at other digital marketing agencies and I kept getting in trouble. I wasn't enjoying it because like most entrepreneurs, I worked for someone and I felt like I could do it better. I was working at one of the biggest digital marketing agencies in the UK and the campaigns were garbage. Like they were poor performing. There wasn't enough attention to detail. I felt the customers were getting ripped off. I didn't like the way they were treating the staff. I didn't like the way they were treating or charging the customers. So I was like, I want to do this for myself because I can do it way better. But because I'm from Australia, not from the UK, banks wouldn't let me get a business loan and start a company because I was a foreigner.
Oh, okay. So I understand.
So I had to take an untraditional funding route and go on a TV show. And The Apprentice gets a bit of a crazy name because of obviously Donald Trump and the American stuff. But in the UK, the BBC is a very respected TV channel and station. And Lord Sugar is one of the richest, most well-known business people in the UK.
Yes.
So it's got a very highbrow, super good reputation. I went to the tryouts for The Apprentice with 75,000 other people. And I got through each layer of the tryouts until on series 10, I got on to the TV program, and I was pitching digital marketing to 11 million people watching the show and to the boss of the show who's 70 plus years old. And I understood quite quickly that algorithms and analytics and all of these words were just going over everyone's head. So I had to break it to, you know, when you look on Google, I'm the guy that gets websites at the top. And he was like, I've got it.
There you go. That's, you know, that's a very, sometimes that's how simple we have to make for people to understand what we do. What did you learn from being on the show?
That reality TV programs are tough and they are vicious. I learned a lot about myself. I learned how much pressure and stress I was able to handle for a sustained period of time. And it was how much you can do in a day. I mean, we were coming up creating businesses in 24 hours that didn't exist.
Wow. Yeah.
Creating a product, creating a name, selling it for sometimes thousands or millions of pounds. And we're doing it all in 12, 24 hours. And when you're under pressure and we had to learn, you know, one day we'd be making a candle. So we're learning everything you can about candles. The next day we'd fly to America and we built a billboard in Times Square.
Wow.
Like just crazy stuff. It was really, really good. I loved every second of it. But it was interesting because when I went on The Apprentice, I had 80 followers on Twitter. Very popular young man I was, my 80 followers. When I came out of The Apprentice, I had 150,000
wow.
Followers. I was going down the street and I was like, you know, 50, 60 selfies a day, autographs, all of this new stuff.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, that was a different experience and keeping my feet on the ground because not only I've never owned a business before, I'm now a business owner. My business partner's Lord Sugar. I've got an investment of £250,000, about $400,000-500,000. And I'm famous, quote unquote, for the first. So there was lots of different sort of metrics there to sort of deal with at once.
Wow. How do you think the experience has helped you in your current position and what you're doing right now?
Completely changed my life. It completely changed my life. I was living in a house with a share house with 11 people, and I was completely flat broke with a dream of being a digital marketer. Within 1 year, my agency was turning over £2 million. We were fastest growing agency in the UK, third fastest growing startup business in the UK.
Wow.
I went from sort of really broke to making a lot of money personally just because of my profile, my agency success.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, I'm very good at what I do. I love what I do. But the profile that the television gave me, and my company agency is called Climb Online. 11 million people watched the final episode of me for an hour saying, climb online, climb online. The day I opened the agency, we got 4,000 leads.
Wow. Oh, wow, man. That's amazing. So it really...
As you know, Matt, in the digital marketing sector, getting one lead's difficult.
Yeah, it is. One qualified
4,000 on one day.
4,000 one day. Wow, you need to hire a lot of people. How did it feel when you were announced as the winner of The Apprentice? How did it feel?
It was like living in a dream. It was like living in a dream. You know, I'd only seen Lord Sugar on the TV. I'd only ever seen The Apprentice on TV. And to be sitting there in real life in the boardroom and he says, you're going to be my business partner. I was numb. I didn't know what was happening because everything was happening so quickly and there's production. So much, and you don't realize the impact it's going to have on your life or your business or your family. Or my life has been completely different from that moment to today. It's like living two different lives, my life before that and my life now.
Wow, that's amazing. Would you recommend other people try to do something like that, like go on The Apprentice? If
It depends what type of person you are.
Okay.
The fame element is really interesting because you're super, super famous as that program comes out and it's successful. Then the next series comes out the year after you, and your fame is gone.
It plummets.
It comes and goes like unbelievably quickly. So you have what I'm really fortuitous with is I won, which really helps. The other candidates who become famous and you're getting selfies and then that selfies are gone. That's interesting. I won and I got a business and I was focused on my business and my craft of digital marketing. So that really helped me, and I'm fortunate for that. I would recommend it for people that really are serious about business, that really need investment. Would I go on a TV show that you just get fame and there's no sort of prize at the end? I don't think so. I think fame is a mask that eats your face, and you need to be really careful about your ambition.
Yeah, fame can destroy people, that's for sure. And, that's a whole other ball of wax. What has your experience been like working with Lord Alan Sugar as a mentor?
Incredible. I didn't understand the power of a mentor or the power of having a network with someone of that stature, how many doors it could open, particularly in the digital marketing space. Having a mentor and a business partner that can ring up, massive Fortune 500 companies and get you a meeting in their boardroom, that's really amazing. Powerful. He's been able to connect me with some of the top 2 or 3 companies in the country.
Wow.
And say, we should do your marketing. Here's my friend at, Rolex, or here's my friend.
Oh, that's amazing.
Company, or, XYZ company that are just so big. I remember I signed up Groupon. It was like our 3rd customer, Groupon.
Oh, wow.
And that was an introduction,
Yeah.
And it's, you're signing up these levels of customers by introduction. I'm getting a referral from my business partner who's a billionaire, super famous.
Yeah.
And so you get that buy-in and that trust with a customer. And I've learned a lot from him about business, about how to hire, employ the right people, how to train staff, and how to manage the business behind the agency, the finances, the legal element, all of the stuff that comes with running a good business. He's been able to coach me on that.
That's awesome. So you think that everyone should look for a mentor? If they can, try and find a mentor?
Have a mentor or a coach, you will never make it to the top level. Yeah. You'll never make it. And that person should be someone that you look up to, and that inspires you and has been there, done that, and got the T-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to find those people because some of them are busy doing their own thing but do you think that, I always hear successful people say this, that when they reach this level of success, they also want to have a protege. They don't give a crap about the money. They just want to well, at least some of them, I mean, maybe not all, but they just feel like having a protege and being able to give back is important. And John Maxwell, in his book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, he talks about the law of having a mentor and the law of having a protege, that your second in command should be your protege who you're grooming to take over for you. Because sometimes that's why businesses fail, because they don't have someone like that. So what are your thoughts on like that? Number one, yes, everyone should have a mentor. I don't know how people can find mentors, maybe through a business coach or something like that. But what are your thoughts on that?
So the goals
and proteges and
business books is called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Oh yeah.
Everyone has probably heard of that. Andrew Carnegie, who commissioned Napoleon Hill to do that, there's one of the first well-documented mentee-mentor relation. Every successful person I've ever met in business has a mentor. They have found that person either through LinkedIn, speaking events, networking events, or seen a video or something of them online. And normally on their first approach, I was lucky because my mentor came through a very unconditional route. So let's put it to one side. You will come across your mentor either on LinkedIn or see a video of them or whatever it might be. And your job is, on that first approach, they're probably going to ignore you, say no, whatever. You need to offer them value, show them how you can assist in their business.
Yeah.
Offer your expertise for free, show them a solve for them, and almost pester them. You need to be show that you're going to change and help their business or help their life in some way. And don't give up, because I know the person who I mentor for the last 8 years, who's my second in charge now of my business. He followed up with me about 3 or 4 times a day for about 7 weeks, till the point where I said, if I don't hire this person, I'm going to get a restraining order.
Yeah. Wow.
On Christmas Eve. And I just did it to see if he would take the interview, which he did. And he's now the managing director of my company.
That's amazing. And another, like, it's cool that he did that. And a lesson I learned from Patrick McDavid, another thing, sorry, I don't mean to name drop and all that, but you brought this up. Like, he said, if you want to make $1 million, find someone who's already made $1 million and make another $1 million.
100%.
And so, if you want to be a protege, go work for someone who's successful already. Maybe you don't need to reinvent the wheel, but you can work for someone who's successful and learn from them and help them. Like, for instance, what's that guy who never started Microsoft, but Bill Gates approached him and he worked for Microsoft. And I forgive me if he's going to watch this every one day. I can't remember his name, but everybody probably knows what I'm talking about. He bought a basketball team, and he's very wealthy now, but he never started the company, but he actually helped someone. So that's awesome advice. So I personally wish that I had found a mentor earlier in my life, because just otherwise it provides so much value. What advice would you give to someone who is struggling to overcome the challenges of dyslexia that you mentioned that you have it?
Be open to people. I've found, since I've found out I'm dyslexic and I've communicated that, I've been very public about my some people are really embarrassed, but some of the greatest entrepreneurs in the world are dyslexic.
Isn't Richard Branson dyslexic?
Lord Sugar, my business partner.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, my good friend Grant Cardone. He talks about how we all get prescribed with all of these different things. And what you've got to do is not make any excuses for it. You make And I ended up understanding in my business, what am I good at? I'm good at the big idea, creative thinking, all of this. And I now have a PA and people who write my written work and are able to understand what I'm good and bad at. They do that stuff for me. And I think I spent a long time trying to conceal that stuff and hide it and pretend I was really good at all that stuff when actually it wasn't my bag. So I think just understanding it, getting help where necessary, but having people around you who support your weaknesses.
Yeah, that's important, isn't it? I was sharing with you before the show, and I'm very vocal about it because I think there's too much of a stigma around these things. That, about maybe 3 months ago, I was officially diagnosed with ADD, and it was a result of my wife's friend's husband opening up to me. He's a digital marketer as well. And opening up to me about it, telling me about how he has all these hobbies that he changes every how often. And I'm like, and everything he talked to me about was like, he was like reading my, like, I open book. I was like describing me to a T. And so I think it's very important because, for people to be able to be open about those things and talk about them so that other people can not feel like they're, number one, so they can help if they can relate to the problems, and so that they don't have to feel like shouldn't have to feel less of a person because you're different. Because the way I see it, there's not something wrong with us. We're just different. Our brains work differently.
I look at it as the reason for my success. I look at it positively.
Yeah, that's how I try to look at it.
Because imagine if I didn't have this, would I be as a creative and as a big thinker as I would? Maybe I'd be more bogged down in the detail, or how would my life be different? I'm sure Rick Branson's happy. Look at the success he's created.
Yeah.
Companies he's created. And I'm sure he looks at his dyslexia as a blessing. And one of my good friends, the guy I was just talking about, he's been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And he went through a really phase of like, why me? How does this change? Am I going to die early? All of this stuff. And now he's saying, what a blessing, because I know how my brain thinks. I might be the man to cure type 1 diabetes. And
there you go.
He's got it because he thinks he's the type of analytical person that's now going to be able to solve it. And I think we're given these things in life to create the things that we do and to help others eventually. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. Are there any techniques or strategies besides having VAs and or personal assistants and so on and so forth that have helped you work through it?
Look, we're so lucky in the world we live in today. There's great software available. There's sort of glasses and all sorts of things you can get that really help, paper and stuff like that. I'm lucky where I'm there or thereabouts. I can kind of get through with the systems that I have. Right on. There's a lot of great coaches and a lot of great software that you can get now. But it really depends on your severity and what you do for a living as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, when it comes to digital marketing, you went the unorthodox road, if I may.
Yes.
What do you think do you have any advice for people who are looking to get into digital marketing?
Well, first of all, get into digital marketing because it's the best industry. If you're on the fence and you're thinking about it, do it because, there's not enough digital marketers in the world. We have a shortage in our industry. We have a shortage of people and we have a shortage of good people who are really passionate about certain subjects of digital marketing. It's very well paid if you're good at what you do. The industry and the conditions are fantastic. And I think it's a career for life because there's so many great tools, technologies that are advancing that you're never bored. Every single day in digital marketing is a day where you feel stupid because you're learning so much. And, every time I try out new software, new tools, new technology, I just get so excited because when I started, getting a website to the top of Google was the pinnacle. And now that's just the basics of connecting it through to a whole campaign. I'd say my advice would be 1, get into it. 2, start with one area of digital marketing. Do not go for the whole box and dice because everyone says they're a digital marketing expert. It took me 7 years, I would say, to properly get good at Google Ads. 7 years. I would say I'm an expert now, and I've been doing this 11 years, okay? Start with one area and master it. Then
I have a golden buzzer. I just wish I could slam a golden buzzer because let's keep going because that's just absolute golden advice.
Yeah, I mean that's also the number one issue that I see with people coming into the industry. They're sort of doing Facebook ads and then they're doing an Amazon page and they're doing TikTok and Pinterest and SEO. And they're kind of saying that they're an SEO expert, but they're not. And I think that's also what gives us a bad name is because businesses and people work with these individuals before they're ready or they've mastered one area and say, I've tried digital marketing, it doesn't work. Well, they haven't tried digital marketing with an expert. If you do digital marketing with me or with yourself, Matt, you'll understand what digital marketing is quite quickly. I would say work for someone who's an expert in the field, learn as much as you can from them, specialize in one specific area and always be learning, reading blogs, constantly staying up to date with what's happening in the sector and get to conferences and get around people who really know their stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's golden to I think Ryan Dice talks about being a T-shaped marketer and going really, really deep on one aspect of being proficient at one channel and one medium of marketing, and then having a knowledge of the rest, maybe a not as deep of a knowledge, but still a knowledge of complementary skills. Like if you're going to do Google Ads, you better know about analytics. You should, because you're not going to know if it's working or not if you're not being able to understand analytics and conversion rate optimization and those things. So what you said was just absolutely, totally important. What do you think, though, the part plays in certification, online marketing certification? For instance, there's the OMCP, Online Marketing Certified Professionals, and things like the Digital Marketing Institute. Do you think that people should, if they really want to show their stuff? I mean, I don't know if this. I have no idea. I'm gonna ask your opinion on what that is. Like a candidate before you who has an OMCP certification in Google Ads and 5 years experience, is that valuable as opposed to someone who doesn't, or it just doesn't?
I'll tell you what, it can't hurt. But here's what I do in all my interviews. People, and I love, by the way, people who, when I say, can you do this? And they tell me, do you know what, Mark, I'm not an expert in that area. I specialize in SEO, particularly in links, for example. That makes me super excited, that honesty about where they do specialize.
Right on.
When I sit down with a candidate that's looking to work in my agency, they might have been to the Digital Marketing Institute or have this or this or this, which is all great. Teaches you the fundamentals, but then I say, okay, let's build a campaign, and that is really where the rubber hits the road. Because we give you an exam and we make you build a campaign, and I've seen people with no certifications build the most granular, detailed, spot-on campaign, and I've seen people qualifications that you can't jump over not be able to log into the system. So I don't mind what you've done before you get to me. Whether, I'm a proponent of going onto YouTube and building a campaign while you watch a YouTube video. That's how I learn myself. I don't know if you've been to college, you've got a degree from Harvard, or you've been to the Digital Marketing Institute. All I care about is what is the level of detail and performance you're going to provide my customers.
Absolutely. So it all comes down to the knowledge and experience at hand. Because you could have, let's be frank, you can pay for the answers to these certification tests. You
can have a certification. Maybe you've not been in the industry 2 years. The digital marketing industry in 2 years is a different industry.
Totally. Absolutely. I mean, think about when Facebook launched. I was telling you about the success of Facebook I had with the car dealership, but I mean, 14.5, iOS 14.5 came out, and I haven't been in the game since it came out. And I was talking to this other agency owner that's developed a solution, as you will, that she thinks is a solution to the attribution problem with Facebook ads and all the things that iOS 14.5 has created. But if you're not in the weeds and doing those things, and the thing, I think you would agree, the thing about digital marketing is all the different channels: Facebook ads, content marketing, SEO, web analytics, Google ads, so on and so forth, social media, so on and so forth, all of those things. It's absolutely impossible for one person to keep up and be an expert in all of those areas. It's impossible. It's literally impossible.
And that's what worries me when I go onto an agency's website and they do everything. Because I'm really concerned. Okay, maybe super big agencies have specialists employed. I get that. But if it's a small agency and they do everything, you've probably got a 1 or 2 or 3 man band who are kind of making it up on the spot or using Fiverr or Upwork to outsource the work. So I'd really that detail, because I want to work with the best that I can work with.
Absolutely.
Any digital marketing campaign is either lack of knowledge or lack of spend, and I'll find either quite quickly.
Lack of knowledge or lack of spend. Absolutely. And you can waste tons of money on let's be frank. You can, if you're running $1 million a month in ad spend on Google ads, you get one negative keyword wrong or let something go, or, the campaign structure set up improperly, the group keyword group, so on and so forth, there goes 10 grand. Boom, boom, boom.
Like that.
Yeah. I had to, when I was at the dealership, I had to learn it all to be able to, I had to be a one-person show because that's what they expected. But they didn't know. I was working for people who had no knowledge of digital marketing that actually expected me to be the all-knowing God of digital marketing, even though it was an interesting experience, but not to park on that. But I'm just saying, you got to know what you're doing at a specific segment of marketing or medium or channel in order to be effective and in order to not screw up. And so,
definitely. And the key to being great at digital marketing is being able to have that deep understanding, particularly of one channel, like we talked about the T, having a varied knowledge across the board, having a deep understanding of 1 or 2 particular channels. And then the real key is being able to communicate it simplistically to a business owner, to a marketing manager, to whoever it is. Because I've sat in boardrooms where I speak about SEO or PPC, and they look like I'm speaking Cantonese.
I know exactly what you're talking about. But how do we communicate? What ways have you found to communicate? And what are some of the common KPIs then? And even that might make someone have the Chinese, like you're speaking Chinese look, but the key performance indicators, like what are the common ones that you and your agency communicate to the clients that you work for?
Do you know what? It changes with every single customer. And what I've understood, the way to be successful in this game is to treat every single customer differently. If you use a one size fits all, you'll have no customers, or you'll have a very specific type of customer. When I sit down with a business, I listen really intently to what their key metrics are that are important to them. So they might say, for example, it might be if you're e-com, it's going to be sales. Specific to their products that make the highest margin. If it's an offline business, it's going to be leads, how much the phone takes to ring, phone calls, whatever. So it's understanding who you're working for, what's important to them, and then dialing the language back to their level of understanding. Because we'll work with businesses where they'll have a digital marketing manager, they'll have a consultant in-house whose knowledge is extreme. So you can speak to them in a detailed way. Then you'll speak to where you're speaking to the business owner, and their knowledge is going to be very basic. Their KPIs are going to be sales, their return on marketing spend, whatever it's going to be. Then you're going to speak to the marketing manager. You're going to be speaking about specific details within the campaign. And I think that's where people get it wrong, is if you confuse the business owner who's paying the invoices and you give them too much digital marketing spend, they're just going to think you're pulling the wool over their eyes. And it's knowing when to turn it on or turn it off, and which KPIs to show certain people and certain businesses. And if you master that, your retention improves tenfold.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome knowledge there. Holy smokes. How do you think I got into this problem where my marketing was working, but the sales wasn't, and it wasn't because of my marketing. Have you ever experienced a situation that with a client where the marketing's working, but they're not answering the phone. They're not following up with the leads. They're literally expecting someone to show up and just be a laydown, as we call it in sales. But even though we can take a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead, we could do everything right and the sales department can crap the bed and not have anything to show for it. How have you number one, have you ever experienced that challenge? And number two, how have you overcome it?
I'm going to tell you the most amazing story.
Oh, please.
I signed up going about 3 or 4 years, I signed up a whopping big campaign, multi-channel international campaign running in UK, North America, Dubai, Africa and Australia. Huge campaign, PPC, £1 million spend plus a month, big campaign. Doing it, it's flying around the world, doing really well, but doing really poorly in Africa. And we're like, what's going on? Anyway, on the leads, when the leads come through, it says on the top of the leads when the sales rep gets it, SEO lead, PPC lead. They're marked from the CRM as they come through, newspaper, radio, etc. Anyway, when PPC first started there, before I was the agency running it, the PPC leads were terrible. They got a massive sales force, 100 people sales force there. And then they changed marketing companies to me. But the leads were still coming through with, radio, PPC, SEO, etc. Anyway, we had an idea. What if we just muddled the names up on the leads that the sales representatives were getting? So PPC, we changed to radio, and we moved radio to PPC. So the sales floor didn't know that this was a PPC lead they were getting. Anyway, the PPC lead conversions were terrible. We changed it to radio, which was traditionally their highest converting lead form. All of a sudden, they started converting the PPC leads at the same rate as the radio ones just by changing the name on the top of the lead. And it blew my mind, because I always felt like the mindset of the salesperson had so much to do with the conversion of a lead, and they just had a better attitude when they were thinking they were using a radio lead. And it was a huge lesson for me about, sales teams and making, how you label things and etc. But that was a great example of, they just thought that digital marketing leads were bad leads. So they were throwing them in the bin, not getting back to them, not following up, not giving them the right mindset as they would a radio advertising lead. And it really changed me from that day forward.
That is an unbelievable story. Like, when I was selling cars, Mark, I quickly learned that I could not pre-qualify anybody. There were people that came in that bought a car, that I sold a car, that I had in the back of my mind, I remember them thinking there's no way this person's going to buy a car. And you triggered a story in my memory about what you just shared, if I may, if that's okay. There's a woman, a young lady who came in, and she came in on what we call a zipper. A zipper is a base model car with no options in it whatsoever. It's just a zipper. It's the lowest price. We use them as lead magnets to get people to. We use the lowest priced car that we have in inventory at the lowest payment with the longest term in order to get people in the door.
Got you.
And she came in on a zipper. And the sales manager was so smart that he would take cars, and in order to create a uniqueness, he would put every single accessory he could on them, but he would first give them to salespeople as demos. So you drive them for 3 months. You have 8,000 kilometers on them. Kilometers where I'm at, miles, whatever. And then he would accessorize the heck out of them. He would tint the windows. He would powder coat the rims. He would take a mid-level trim that had SUV that had 17-inch tires. He would pull them off, and he would put 19-inch tires, powder coat them. You could not price compare these vehicles with anything else on the market because they were so unique. So he created a category of one. This guy is very, very smart to this day. I'm glad I worked for him. But the point being, one of those suckers was in the dealership. And as soon as she came in and she walked by it and she looked at it, I knew I had her. But Mark, I didn't think she was going to buy because she came in on a zipper and she was young and I didn't think she had any money. But I quickly realized the point I'm trying to make, that I had to put away my preconceived prejudices and biases about people when I was selling. Because if I wanted to make a paycheck and I wanted to make money, I had to treat everybody the same. And I took every single person, no matter what. If I could get them to the point where I built enough rapport with them, and that's where I had to learn how to do that. And I never took people on a test drive until I had enough rapport with them that I'd made a friend. And I never pre-qualified the leads. I never pre-qualified them. I always treated even when I was in the internet department. I went from the sales floor to the internet department, and everybody wanted to be in the internet department. They all wanted to do it, but not everybody was proficient or skilled at doing it. And even then, with all the leads that came in through that medium, I still treated them the same way. So the lesson here of what you just said is that salespeople need to treat every opportunity as an equal opportunity, because honestly, you will bloody well sell.
If you walk into any sales floor in this country or another, the sales team will generally have consensuses about certain lead channels. These ones are good, these ones are bad. Now, that came from somewhere, normally their manager or a team leader, or they don't even know why they're saying it, but they think a certain lead is a bad or good lead. But every lead that walks in front of you, whether it's in a showroom, whether it comes through the CRM, whether it rings your phone, every lead is important and should start in the back of your mind as this could be my biggest customer ever, and I need to treat it that way.
Yeah. I sold 2 cars to one guy, a van and an SUV, and I had no idea. And I just treated him the same way. So people don't know.
On The Apprentice, I sold 9 hot tubs to one man. I don't know who needs 9 hot tubs, but I sold them.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I have to tell you, it has been an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on the show. I generated, just so you know, 48 questions to ask you today, and I haven't even touched all of them. And so it's been a pleasure having you here. It's been an absolute blast. I would love to have you back on the show if you'd be so kind and so willing to do so. But I know that you have to get going, and I want to respect your time. What's one big takeaway you want people to get from this episode?
Listen, digital marketing has changed my life, and I have seen it change more businesses and more lives than I can even tell you. I've seen when you get one keyword or one creative or one website perfect, it changes a company.
Yeah.
And this stuff is so powerful. And I'm so glad that there's people like yourself that are getting the message out there and getting experts together, because
that's what we're trying to do.
Future of business. And I appreciate what you guys do. And I just encourage everyone to join our industry.
Right on. Hey, how can our listeners connect with you online if they choose to do so?
If you just look for Mark Wright, the name Mark Wright on any platform, I'm blue ticked, verified, whatever, across the platforms. If you find me, my company's Climb Online, and we'd love to talk to any businesses or any people interested in our space.
Fantastic. Hey, once again, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You have a great day.
Thanks, mate.